Another Cowboys and Coffee podcast is back for another week, dude. We made it through the draft. Uh, I'm excited about the draft. Where are you post draft already? Let's start just an overall overview. Cowboys post draft.
I think it was awesome. I know, lack of a better word, that's great. We're still debating if he's worth the second or blah blah blah. We're still going at it. I thought it was. I enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I can tell you I got into finding out these players and so forth. And yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. The good thing is we're at the point where the Cowboys roster is where every guy who's drafted probably going to make the roster because they're so talented. But you have guys who you could probably stash in a practice squad and become guys down the road. And undrafted free agents, listen, let's just get right into it. Round one, Mozzie Smith, Michigan. He's 6'3", 323, built like an ox. I'm going to start by saying this. Greg Cosell said he should have been a top 15 pick. He's that good. Where are you on Mozzie Smith?
Well, they had a weak link in that defense. It's called up the gut in the middle of it. Okay, I don't know if it's scheme that it's the scheme or the player, but they got a player who's going to be both. He's going to DYA. He's going to dominate his area, and so you're not going to run to his left or the right of that hole. Wherever he is, you're not running there. So and teams are going to know that. And guess what? Makes the other part of the defense with the other fellas playing as well. They need to stop the run to make this defense championship defense.
So I think Mike McCarthy is very clear about running the football, but it seems to me like they're also very clear about stopping the other team running the football. You look last year, a loss to the Jags. Last year, lost to the Packers. I mean, Packers are down 2 scores in the fourth quarter, still just running the football on the Cowboys. The Cowboys couldn't stop it. Those 2 wins alone move them up to the number 1 seed. It's a whole different ball game. Mozzie Smith is a physical freak. They basically have him in a flat stance at Michigan. Michigan's so funny because they have so many talented players. They still play football like it's 1972. They have a very dated scheme for some of the talented players. We'll get to another one in just a minute. But Mozzie Smith is a physical freak. I mean, his RAS score is off the chart. He's almost a 10 for his relative athlete score. Like, he's not just like strong, he's stupid strong, to the point where Michigan strength and conditioning coaches had to call up the manufacturers of some of their machines to ask them to change it so they could put more weight on their machines with some of the lifts he was doing.
Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to find it in the game now on the NFL level. Can you get away with that at times? You can't always get away with it. At times, you're going to see ESPN highlight or NFL Network highlight of pushing that guard back and stopping the third and 1. That's what you want.
And I think for him, for me, what's really going to do is change the presence of the pocket for a quarterback up the middle. That's always been, that was Tom Brady's biggest problem, was pressure right up front. A lot of guys can move to the right, move to the left, and get that ball out. Someone like Brady, he had an issue with that. And I think that creates an issue for a lot of quarterbacks. When you can't step up into your throw, he can push that pocket or take the double teams, and he can stack and shed blockers. Was it who I thought we were going to pick? I think both of us can say no. It doesn't look anything like our mock draft.
Right.
But I think he's going to be a perfect fit. And there really weren't a lot of guys there at 26, the way the draft broke, for guys you could say, oh, this guy's going to come and contribute right away. And this is the guy I think who can.
Well, because we didn't think so. We were saying, said, Paul, do you think anybody's going to come in? Monk, I need a decaf for me, please, to go. Thank you, hon. I love you. Decaf. But that was one spot that you could see right away him get in front, especially that first Giant or Philadelphia or Washington games that they're going to run the football.
Yeah.
And they're going to run the football.
And they're going to have to stop the run because Eagles can run the football. The Giants have Saquon. They picked up another back. Commanders are going to try and run the football to keep Sam Howell, upright and give him some time. This is a smart move, I think, by Dallas. We got to see a little of the inner workings of them working on this deal. They were looking at the guard, I believe, from Wisconsin, and they just or Bergeron. He's from Syracuse, Matthew
Mm.
Bergeron. Well, they chose Mozzie Smith. It looked like he was the guy who they felt was ready to go there, and I don't get. I think it ends up working out well for them. And it's funny, before the draft, even people who aren't really Cowboys people are like, oh, like they'll pick maybe this guy, Kalijah Kancey or whatever. And then after the draft, they pick Mozzie Smith, and they're like, that's a great pick. A lot of us are like, oh, I didn't really expect that. But it turned out very well for the Cowboys. So I'm okay with Mozzie Smith being picked there at 26. The next pick, at pick 58, the Cowboys kind of see a run of tight ends up in front of them. Dalton Kincaid went right before them in the first round. Teams start to pick like Michael Mayer. So they go ahead and pick Luke Schoonmaker, tight end from Michigan. He is a big boy, but another guy who I think at Michigan was limited by their scheme, but has flashed and shown really everything you want out of a tight end at 6'5", 250, and from Hampton, Connecticut.
And again, if you ranked all the tight ends, and we know everybody knows who they are. It's A, B, C, D, E, and F in that order. There's not like two top end ones and the rest of them are. This guy, you look at him as you break the tape down on. This guy's an A plus blocker. He can handle it. He's going to handle the ends, and I'm telling you, those long arms. He's 6'5" and change, but he looks big. He looks like he's 6'7". And I love the pick. Love it. Could I tell you they're going to pick him before? No.
Sure.
But it's always interesting about the draft. You and I and all of us are amateurs at this. We always think we know better, don't we? We don't know these.
Funny.
It's just it's the excitement of this end. But what's his name? Schoonmaker?
Schoonmaker, yeah.
Schoonmaker. He brings a third tight end because when they go to two tight end sets, somebody's getting hold. And by the way, we did talk about Schultze, and that goal line with Zeke got caught in the back when he missed the block. Remember that one? Oh. This guy's not gonna miss this block. Not gonna miss it.
No, and here's the thing. I think he is the tight end that everyone thinks Michael Mayer is going to be at the next level. He is a guy who, as I've said before in this podcast, he attacks the seams. I mean, he actually has shown a lot of ability in that in the passing game. Michigan only threw the ball 24 times a game last year, which you can imagine for a collegiate game is very few, and for the professional game is very few. Now, he's a better blocker than Mayer. He can still do athletically the stuff Mayer can do, and we get so caught up in, okay, I'm doing a mock draft for ESPN. I'm doing a mock draft on PFF or PFT, and Schoonmaker goes in the 4th or the 5th. So I've decided he's a 4th or a 5th round pick, rather than some of the guys on here, rather than us going ahead and doing the work just because we assume they go in this round. And we've seen them in the past. You pick guys who the Patriots picked Cole Strange as guard a couple years ago. He's been a phenomenal guard. They picked Logan Mankins a couple years ago. People are like, oh, that's too high. It's like, listen, if we don't feel like this guy's going to be here and I pick him now, forget what he's ranked. If he pans out, Strange is a Pro Bowl caliber guard. Logan Mankins was almost is like borderline Hall of Fame guard. Same with like Zach Martin. You're like, oh, you're picking a guard high in the first round. If he pans out, who cares where he's picked? I mean, if he pans out as a good Pro Bowl tight end, you won't look back and have a problem with it. Same with Travis Frederick. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Again, you don't go to the two tight end sets, okay, with the deuce back there. The play action is gonna help somebody. They've run the play action off the two tight end sets. It's going to be tough to defend. That formation alone will be tough to defend with the play action.
I really thought this would be more of an offensive draft. They took a tight in the second round. I thought they would be much more focused early in addressing the offense, but it looked like they felt like they had some defensive needs, even a defense that was top 5.
L'Oreal Group, 78% of the PET plastic we used came from recycled.
Thank you. That has to come up, of course.
Is that aliens? What is that?
I actually have the stuff on DeMarvion Overshown, their third round pick. I was saying they went defense, which was surprising to me. The linebacker from Texas, but this dude can absolutely fly to the football. I mean, he comes in, he's I have his stuff right here. I'm just 6'4", 224, converted safety to linebacker.
It's interesting. They showed a little picture of him when he's in third grade that he wanted to play football and play for the Dallas Cowboys. How about that? How about that? Isn't that awesome? So let me see my little amateur observation on these three picks. The first two were power picks. So they'll know the power game of the NFL. This third pick he'll know the speed of the NFL. See, so you understand what they're picking? Yeah, they'll understand. It won't be a crash course on the NFL level on their styles, where you put them, because I'm like Belichick and all the great coaches, Landry and all of them, will always say Landry, they know where to put that player to excel in that position. Because remember, they had Thomas Henderson, 6'2", 215, playing strong side linebacker. You would never, even in that day, have him play strong side linebacker. Why? Because Landry knew what type of a player he was. By the way, athletic too. Ran a 9.600.
Now you look at the Cowboys, and this allows them to really have Micah specifically as a pass rusher, or to pull him back as a linebacker, a blitzing linebacker from the middle. You don't have to rely on Micah to be a linebacker anymore. You have Van Der Esch, you have Damone Clark, you have Harper, you've got Overshown now. So you have some depth in the middle, so you're not scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you actually have talent there. You actually have guys who can play well. I mean, Damone Clark's going to get a full offseason now. He's healthy. He's got a full preseason camp to go through. Van Der Esch knows the system. He ended up playing very well by the end of the year. Now you have a young guy who you've got Hankins, who I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes. You've got the big fellow they got from Kentucky a year ago, right? You've got Mozzie Smith. You have players who will eat up blockers in the middle and allow a guy like this to be a heat-seeking missile and to go in and tackle and clean up the football. And I think they're prepared for the modern NFL. They're big up front, and he's another one. Those first three picks are all phenomenal athletes. They feel like, okay, we get athletes who can play, we can coach them up even further, and then we'll go from there. It brings me to the – go ahead.
Go.
What's the fourth one? Interesting to the next pick, Viliami Fehoko, no relation to Simi Fehoko, 6'4", 276. He's a DN who's not really, now they start to go away from superior athletes to now good football players. This guy was the conference player of the year, and he was phenomenal. I mean, really, Mount West player of the year, defensive player of the year. I mean,
there's a credentials there. There are credentials there. And you look at his body type, he got no calves. He's not a physical specimen as you look at him. But in between the tackles, in between in the line of scrimmage, he's a football player.
Right.
They're changing. They're not going to be a finesse team anymore. That's what they're not going to be. They're not going to be a finesse team. He gets to the football one way or another.
Yes,
and we'll see how we can play against NFL guards.
Right.
Look, he's going to have a handful against those Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to kick down to a 3 technique, as some people have mentioned that. I think he's a defensive end. Still, the Eagles got big tackles too, but he's a guy who I feel like will push someone like Chauncey Golston for a roster spot. I think Durance Armstrong obviously is still there. You have Sam Williams, you have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. He kind of fits almost that DeMarcus Lawrence, like it's very tough against the run, and maybe we can develop him as a pass rusher. I'm not telling you he's a double-digit sack guy, but what I am telling you is he's someone who you're not going to get bowled over no matter his size. He's very strong, and he has a very an excellent nose for the football. He really does.
Yeah, he makes plays. He makes plays on that level, and you draft on that level, and you find a player that stands out, and you go get them. And you see Mississippi State Valley, whatever, where Jerry Rice come from, he did very well.
Yes. Now, the teams I thought their first 4 rounds, a lot of people thought Cowboys were going to go guard. It just didn't go that way for them. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll just pick a guard no matter what." Well, that's silly. That leads you to picks like Tristan Hill. It's just you have to pick it no matter what. They ended up picking Asim Richards, who's 6'4", 309. He was a tackle in college, but he has some flexibility to play inside. He's got 34-inch arms. He fits that guard type player who they can develop in the future. I still think they're going 5 best linemen, and that means Tyler at left guard for now and Tyron at left tackle. And in a year, I think Tyler full-time kicks outside if there's no injuries, and Tyron moves on or retires. But I think this is a guy who down the road can develop into a starter.
I watched tape of him. He looked polished. He looked always balanced. He looked like he had his hands were in the right place. His legs were all properly set. The footwork was there. It's interesting that they know what's going on behind the scenes of who got that left guard. We don't.
Right.
And it's pretty obvious they didn't react to it the second round or first round of getting those guys that we thought, the TCU guy or the Florida guy. They didn't get him. They didn't want to get him because they knew they don't need him. They knew that they were going to spend a 4th round, 5th round draft pick. They already scouted this guy out, and you build from there.
What you like about him is he keeps his quarterbacks clean. And he seems, if you've seen him play, especially when he plays guard, he has the athleticism to shuck a guy or to pass a guy off the line and to still come back and make a block on the backside. He seemed to work very well in that offensive system. He has a good quarterback there. There's talent on the team he was on. So it wasn't like he's playing against second-tier guys. He's playing, in the ACC. And, I think he's someone who develops as a guard. He'll be a better guard than tackle, and he'll keep everything confined for him. And again, 309, they're going to put weight on him. He'll be up to 320 in a year, and I think ready in a year or two to step into a starting role if he develops. It always is if he develops, but Cowboys have a new line coach, and that's what he's there for. That's what he's paid for.
I should have wrote it down. There was somebody that knew him, went to school there. Did you hear? Or I heard. I'm trying to remember where because I saw it online. Somebody went to school there, said he was highly intelligent, high character. He's a poor man's Tyron Smith. That's what he is.
Right.
With character and intelligence. That's what he is, and that's what they see in him. Now you'll find out come up in a couple of weeks here, right? Next week when they come in and go into camp, they show up. You'll see some things on how he reacts and so forth. But it sounds like that he's smart enough to adjust his mind to the NFL, and the body will catch up to it.
Right, and I think he's a depth pick for now. They have another guard that picked up in free agency, and I think he's someone who he'll battle out with what Let's Go and Ball, and to be that like 7th or 8th lineman on the roster. And if he makes
everybody wants Ball cut.
Right.
Even mommy wants Ball cut. So
right, it's like
yeah.
The Cowboys fans, I love them because they're like, this is his breakout year. It's Josh Ball is like the Rico Gathers of offensive linemen. Rico Gathers for years. Like, this is the year for
well, you don't know this. We'll talk about later. There was a offensive tackle, Phil Parsdetic. I think how to pronounce his name, from Notre Dame. Missed a hold. He had a big hole against the Giants on a 3rd down play, killed the Cowboys drive. And old-time Cowboys. It was the early 80s. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think Mr. Ball better pick it up or he'll be off the roster, and Ricketts might have his spot.
Well, he said they kicked him inside. They put him inside.
Same.
So we'll see.
We'll see. You better figure it out. Round 6, the Cowboys traded back up with the Chiefs. They traded a 5th rounder next year to get Eric Scott Jr., a cornerback from Southern Miss. He's 6 foot 197. Now, people were upset because he ran a 4.7 140. He ran that with a pulled hamstring. So that's not his true speed. That's not his game speed. It's not his playing speed. He's more of a low 4.5 guy, like 4.51, not a 4.71. Interesting that they made the move back up to get him. I'm sure they assume next year they'll have more compensatory fifth round picks. Where are you at with Eric Scott Jr.? He's a big guy at 6 foot, almost 200 pounds.
Yeah, I saw tape of him and stuff. He plays ahead of everybody else. If you see the tape of him, he's moving above everybody else's speed. Yeah, his nose is around the ball.
I
And
think
that Tampa too. That those he'll probably see some time on special teams because there's certain guys they lost on special teams. He'll be making those special team tackles on the what do you call it, the wing, whatever. What is
yeah, the gunner.
gunner.
You know, it's interesting. I think this is a guy who's a candidate for the practice squad and to kind of work his way on. I think the Cowboys don't have a lot of openings on the defensive side of the ball, but I think he's someone who will, definitely get his nose in there. Injuries happen. This is a guy who can kind of get on there and at some point stick his nose in and make a tackle here or there. So I don't expect a lot from him. Look at their cornerbacks. You've got Diggs, Gilmore, and Bland, 1, 2, 3. Jordan Lewis coming back. He pushed Kelvin Joseph out, who hasn't been great as a second-round pick, but it's actually been
Israel,
a special teamer.
And Israel, right?
He's a safety.
Yeah.
Goodwin.
Okay, right. Did they move him back to safety? They moved him to safety or back to corner?
So he can switch between both, but you still have Goodwin with your special teams ace. So
they're not giving it to him.
You've got Hooker, Kirsch, Wilson. You've got Bell and Mukuamu. Mukuamu as a safety / corner. I thought he played decently as corner last year, so I don't know that there's a lot of room for Eric Scott Jr. Now, in the 6th round, they got someone who I think will definitely play and get touches this year. That's everyone's, I think, favorite pick is Deuce Vaughn, running back from Kansas State. This guy is Darren Sproles reincarnated. He's 5'5", 180 pounds. He didn't test tremendously well, but this dude is a football player. He's a football player. He's not a track star. He's a football player.
Well, I remember listening to Jerry West one time. He goes, "You go see the player play. That's how you break them down. Not this 4.6s, 4.5s, 4.8s, 4.7s. How do they play live at the game? And you give him the ball, give him a crack, he's gone. Now, 3rd and 1, I don't know about a 3rd and 1. And then, those guys, the big time guys, 3rd and 1 will push the pile. He might not push the pile, but 14 other carries is going to hurt somebody.
Right. And I think
one of those 14 other carries or 2 of those 14 carries. Yeah. And plus he can catch the ball out of the backfield.
That's what I was going to say. And in the more West Coast style offense, that's what you're going to have. A little dink and dunk to the running backs. Well, now you got a guy who is able to.
We know y'all are busy. If you're working like a dog.
Of course, I have to have these commercials pop up for no reason. What you're going to have, you're going to get the ball in the hands of the backs and let them make plays against linebackers. He is going to turn a 3rd and 8 little dink for 2 yards into 15, and he's going to get a first down. You can just see it coming down the road. He's definitely that guy.
I like his matchup against some raggedy Eagle linebackers. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with him making a big first down at Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Number 42.
Yep.
And finally, we have Jalen Brooks, wide receiver, the last pick in the 7th round, 6'2", 205. I thought the Cowboys might go quarterback here in the 7th round and have someone to develop. You've got Cooper Rush in a 2-year deal, and obviously Dak's the future. I thought they might pick someone who they would stash in the practice squad for a couple of years to take over for Cooper Rush. They didn't. They took Jalen Brooks, who's a bigger receiver. I think this is a practice squad guy and someone who down the road will, maybe contribute on special teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make not only the roster, but doesn't even make the practice squad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a long shot for him, but you never know these NFL stories are incredible. Long shot, and guess what? He got 10 years in the league.
Right, right. I mean, they've kept some guys around.
I like his size. I like his size.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's definitely physical, and to me, he screams. Okay, he's on the practice squad, and if he needs to come up for if he needs to come up for special teams, that's the kind of guy you bring up. You know, that's the guy we're at. That's the guy you're with. So, I want to look now at some of their undrafted free agents who they brought in, who, by all accounts, this might be their best year ever. One guy, Hunter Lupke, the fullback from North Dakota State. This dude is nasty. Hunter Lupke is nasty. I mean, he's everything.
Is that a Viking name? Is that a Viking?
I mean, you look at some of his highlights, man. He reminds me, he's like a more physical Dallas Clark, like a fullback. He's like Allstott, a little smaller version of Mike Allstott. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people thought he would be drafted. They were surprised he wouldn't. I mean, he was a Walter Payton Award finalist. You know what I mean? As a fullback, he's got wheels. He's 6'1", 230. You know,
he looks bigger than that.
Right, he does. He is nasty. I mean, I love him. I think he makes the roster. People, Lance Zierlein has him as a 5th round pick. You know, getting someone like him is big.
Yeah, it's exciting to look at these free agents coming in because, again, when you're putting the ball in their hands to become football players, they're all equal. You know, 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, you're out there. You got to produce. You know, I'm a 1st rounder. There's no guarantees in the NFL. I'll give you a perfect example. When Wilson over in Seattle, when whatchamacallit turned around, Pete Carroll turned around and benched the guy who they just signed $20 million and put Wilson in. The rest is history.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. You got to have these guys. The Cowboys have done a great job over the years of getting those undrafted free agents, bringing them in, and they produce. This is a guy who I think he can actually make the roster. You know, he can be. Would I rather have Sean McCune as a 4th tight end, or would I rather have a true fullback who can even catch the ball a little bit, who can lead block for Pollard or Deuce Vaughn? I definitely would rather have, that fullback in his position. I'm excited for him. You know,
well, I always like fullbacks. Will they run it when? Well, you'll see when it comes to preseason. You'll see during the training camp, they have the fullback, and I thought they were going back to it. I thought they said they're going to go back to it because they're going to use the tight end for Michigan as a fullback at times.
Right. Yeah, they're going to use him in an H-back role too. It'll be interesting to see, how McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer put this all together. They got 2 other guys I really want to talk about. Number 1 is Tyrus Wheat. He's about 6'2", 260 D-end outside linebacker type guy. He shows some ability. He's a good pass rusher. I think he's another guy. They signed him a $20,000 signing bonus, $185,000 guaranteed. And also the other guy I want to look at is Earl Bostic Jr. You know, he got $200,000 guaranteed. He's a tackle, and from Kansas. Another guy who they thought he would be drafted. A lot of people thought he would be actually, not just some free agent signing, but
now I saw a video of him. I looked up quite a few minutes of video of him. He's 6'6", you know that, right? Over 300.
Yes.
He's good. He should have been drafted.
Over 34-inch arms, 34.
Yeah, he should have. I don't know why he didn't get drafted. He's 6'6" and he's smooth as butter. He's legit. He should have been drafted. I know it's drafted 7th round, but it's drafted, not going to free agent.
This is another guy who wouldn't be surprised if he makes the roster and, he kind of pushes let's go and Ball off the roster. And those guys kind of get kicked into Cowboys have these guys, so they'll be either kicked to, I'm not sure their practice squad availability that they can go practice squad and then off and on the roster as the season goes by. But I would not be shocked if Earl Bostic Jr. comes in and ends up claiming one of those backup, like a swing tackle spot. Is he a great player? No, but I think he has some ability. I really do.
He's. You look at the tape, you don't see much difference between and the rest of those guys got drafted. I'm telling you. No, he doesn't. He's out there. His feet are out there. His hands are out there. As soon as that snap of the ball, he's there's no lag time at all. And his body frame is 6'6". I'm telling you, he should have been drafted.
Now, give me an overall grade for the Cowboys draft. Give me an overall. Now, I want to also say the Eagles get so much credit. Or the Eagles did this, and they traded a pick for DeAndre Swift. Then you also need to say the Cowboys, with their picks, traded for Hankins, the 6th rounder for Hankins. They traded a 5th rounder for Stephon Gilmore and a 5th rounder for Brandon Cooks. Because if we're going to give the Eagles the credit for what they did with their – and I got no problem giving them credit for trading for Swift, okay? A 4th rounder for Swift, fine. That was part of their draft package. Great. The Cowboys deserve the credit for those picks being traded for players too. What is your grade in light of that?
Well, I'm gonna give him it's hard not to give him a B+. I'm gonna give him an A-. I'm gonna give him an A-. I think an A- is fair enough. Yeah.
That's funny.
A-.
I was gonna go B+, but when you consider the
Right.
players that they traded for, I think it's an A- as well. I don't think it's a home run out of the park. I think they address some needs. I think they trust their scouts and Will McClay to do what they need to do. They trust Dan Quinn. They talk it over, and they seem to have a good process. The proof is really in the pudding the last couple of years, where people last year like, oh, Tyler Smith, he reaches way too much, too many holding penalties. He played very well at left guard and quite admirably at left tackle, and it did very well as an offensive lineman his first year, where everyone was like, this guy's not going to be any good at all. Well, he's pretty good. Here's the future of the Cowboys offensive line. So is the same thing true this year?
Mm-hmm. Again, from last year's draft, how did the Eagles do? From last year's draft, how did the Cowboys do? Okay, give me that one. Nobody played with the Eagles. No, those guys. Davis was hurt. He played very limited on running downs, blah, 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 running downs. And he missed some games. He was not in shape. He couldn't go there. By the way, this guy Smith plays every down, 49 plays in a game he plays.
That's big. Jordan Davis played like 15 to 20. Ozzie Smith is used to playing every single play. He plays run, plays pass, goal line.
Dean was not on the field. The rest of those tight end was not. Nobody was on the field last year from that draft. Nobody was on the field. Come to the Cowboys, you had one guy had 5 interceptions. You had a left tackle and left guard out there.
So with the trades for Gilmore, who's a starting high-end cornerback, with Brandon Cooks, who's immediately your number 2 and helps slot Michael Gallup to your number 3, with the trade for the big D tackle, Jonathan Hankins, at the D tackle, who those guys will eat up the run, him and Mozzie Smith. I think it's an A- draft. I don't think they got maybe a tight end like they wanted to. I think they probably had some other guys higher than Schoonmaker, but I bet you they looked at him and say, he can still do everything we want. You know, they could have picked Mayer in the first round. He wasn't even in the discussion. You know, and they apparently the Chiefs had called and asked about trading up with the Cowboys, and they probably could have gotten like a 3rd-round pick for going that low. And, you know, apparently it is part of the course to ask, well, who are you guys going to draft? They said Mozzie Smith, and the Cowboys said, nah, we're all good. And the Cowboys took him, and the rest is history. I'm going to give him an A-.
So back to the Eagles draft. The guy Smith, that was the 30th pick?
31st, Nolan Smith.
So Nolan Smith dropped to the 31st pick. Tell me you're not shocked on that one.
I was surprised. I didn't think he'd be that.
Oh, absolutely. You got to understand, 30 teams passed on him.
Or so, yeah. And the question is,
there's 30 teams that said, you know, we don't need him. We don't need him.
Didn't have picks, sure.
Right. I know there's some of those teams are going to go for quarterbacks, and I get it. But there's no way the pre-draft had him 15 to 10, 7, like that. Not the 3rd.
Surprising.
So don't tell me it was a steal. Nobody wanted him.
I don't think you can call 1st-round picks steals. That's not really was Aaron Donald a steal at 15 because he's one of the best D tackles. He's still top 15 pick. You're not steals in the 1st round. I'm not saying it's a bad pick, but you can't call it a steal if you pick a guy in the 1st round. That's not steal. Listen, we're gonna close up. It's a Cowboys and Coffee podcast. I want to tell you a coffee story that happened today, D. I'm at church and we got a coffee grinder, and I'm, you know, it's a little low. I'm like, oh, no big deal. I'll fill it up. Everything's good. I grind the coffee. I go to sip it, and I was like, what bag did I just use? I just put the decaf in the regular caffeine side. So we're going to have to run through that coffee because there's no way to take it out and waste it.
Oh,
So
really?
everyone's sipping decaf for the rest of the week.
Yeah,
so.
I got decaf tonight. Mom picked it up, so it's awesome. I can still have a cup of coffee and so forth. But I thought it was a fun draft for watching teams pick. The Giants did well. Good, let them go well. Let the Redskins go well. Let them all go well. They're still not better than the Cowboys. Do you know why? You know why?
Better quarterback.
Yes.
Better quarterback.
Yes. Because Philadelphia, as Jay would say, they were all in it for last year. It ain't happened this year. Sorry. Your luck ran out.
Very interested to see where it goes from here. So that's it for our Cowboys and Coffee podcast post-draft breakdown. D, anything else before we get out of here? Another minute and a half. What else you got?
Listen, I forgot what it's like to be in a Super Bowl, into a playoffs, to get into a championship. And that's not good as a Cowboy fan. And we have to, it has to get done. And hopefully that corner that we brought in is our Herb Adderley to get us over the hump. We need a player that had that Super Bowl and said, this is how you get it, and this is we're going to get it. So because we're a better team than the rest of the NFL. We really are. We're a better team than the rest of the NFL.
Too much talent to not be in a conference championship this year. It's too much talent. Last year I said divisional. This year it's got to be a conference championship. It's unacceptable. So that's the reality of it. All right, listen. We're going to wrap it up before we get cut off here. D, I love you.
Love you.
Listen, you can find us, Cowboys and Coffee Podcast, or Designated Report Joint. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple iTunes, wherever you can find us. Go ahead. Hurry up.
My shampoo looks different. My hair looks different. This is actually real. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Love you guys. All right. Be good. Talk to you later.
Ciao.
Bye.